And Stephanie Willis is a former state prosecutor and criminal defense attorney.
And this is something that we have to remember. The case here is about the victims. The victim here is Andrea Constant, and she has a voice that needs to be heard. And, you know, DA Steele did a proper job in bringing this case before a jury so that she could have her voice heard. However, we have to also consider the fact that even though there may have been past transgressions between Andrea Constant and Bill Cosby, it all comes down to that one night, that particular evening when she said no, when she did not provide her consent.
Right.
So that's something that, you know, is very key here for the prosecution to key in on. I mean, Bill Cosby obviously at that time and still today is in a position of power. I mean, we have to admit he's America's dad. This is somebody that I looked up to when I was watching The Cosby Show when I was younger. And this was a very, very hard case for the DA to try. But the thing that we have to understand is it goes back to the victim. It's the DA's job to tell her story. And I think in retrying this case, that, you know, it goes to show that this is about Andrea and not about the DA here in this case.
What did you think of DA Stevens' closing?
Well, I thought it was very standard. That's usually what most prosecutors do when they first do their closing. It's not really more so of an argument, but just kind of a summary, and you want to give the elements to the jury, because then you have your rebuttal. And when you have your rebuttal, that's really when you're going to bring in all your arguments based upon what was said by the defense counsel.
And that's but I think Baden's going to even argue that. But even if you can do that, do you think that they've tied the gun to Aaron Hernandez in any way, Stephanie?
I don't think so.
No.
That's just my personal opinion. I know the prosecution has their burden to prove, but I really don't think so. You know, the jury is seeing now that there were no fingerprints, no type of DNA on the gun. There's nothing really on the bullets for them to show. And, you know, this is what we like to call a CSI kind of a jury.
Right.
And so the jury really likes to see what they see on TV, and they're not getting that here today.
No. And here now is Stephanie Willis, who brought the brains today because we were just watching the testimony of John Waller, who is a deputy, want to make sure I get this, director of Camden County Public Works. And as he's testifying about opening and closing the dam, I'm thinking, what is going on here? Why is he testifying about opening and closing the dam? And then you said what?
Well, I said that it's probably significant because the water levels that may have been by the Cooper River at the time that poor Brandon was found may have had some, I guess, may have had some
changes in the water level.
Changes in the water level, which may have been able to, I guess, affect what was found. You know, DNA evidence or any other kind of evidence that was found around Brendan at the time.
Analyst Stephanie Willis is a criminal defense attorney and a former state prosecutor.
I know that there was that one board member who actually said that the facts that he said during the parole hearing were a little different to the facts that he had himself, that the parole board member had himself. So, you know, as a defense attorney, we always want to prep our clients. And I'm sure his attorney, Malcolm, did the same. But, you know, when your client is there and talking on their own, there's only so much that you can do. You know, really a judgment is a judgment. And at this point, unfortunately, the Goldmans aren't able to get much from OJ. All of his assets are really protected. Under the Florida Homestead Exemption Act, any real property, meaning his home, anything that if he were to be accepted into Florida for parole, nothing would be able to be touched, unfortunately, by the Goldman family or the Brown family. So, you know, unless he essentially moves on and actually gets some kind of employment, unfortunately, there's nothing that they'll be able to do.